It's been 30 years since the tragic murders of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. How does it feel for you as you look back now, all these years later?
Yeah, Emma, that's a great question. And it's something that I ponder, not just because it's 30 years, but it comes to my thoughts a lot of how time has passed. And when you say 30 years, when I talk about it in a show like yours, it seems like yesterday because it's so new and everything just comes right back to my mind. And then the more that I talk, I remember, more about that. And I try not to remember. I always say to people that's past. And I always look to pay it forward and everything in the future. And the motto that I've lived by, the truth is and no matter what opinions people have of me or anything with the trial is, I can't change the past. No one can. I can only take care of my today and my future and just make it better for myself, which will make it better for other people too. And I really live by that.
I was wondering about that actually for you, just as a fellow human and the compassion I hold for all that you've gone through. If, first of all, the weight and the tragedy of the loss of loved ones, the trauma of going through something like that, and just wondering about the weight you've carried, if anything. And so I appreciate you discussing your perspective and how you've lived your life since without that burden.
Yeah, I think the important thing is to mention is I come from a very large family, and my mom and father passed away, but I've always had the base of the family. But I think it's really the pain that the Goldmans went through. I think it's the pain that Nicole's family went through. That was what the trial should have been about day one, about the two young people in the prime of their life losing their life. And it was on focus because OJ was a celebrity, so it was all focused on OJ, the OJ trial, where it was really should have been about Ron Goldman, Nicole Brown Simpson. And so for me to live through that, there's no comparison to the Goldmans, the Browns, for them to have to go through it. And I think Emily, with the OJ dying and that, people that said, well, at least there's closure. I don't think there's ever closure. For them, I don't think there's ever closure. It's going to be a memory every anniversary I'm sure every day. Kim Goldman thinks of Ron and Brett thinks of Ron. And it's sure that the Browns, the sisters, they just think of losing their sister, and the kids losing their mom. And that's what it's about. And that's just fact.
Tell me a little bit about how you met Nicole and what was she like?
Well, the meeting with Nicole was, it happened because a friend of mine, we had a casting business and then acting. So casting business for extras and date parts for saying. So my buddy's name is Grant Kramer. Grant's a great guy. He was in General Hospital and very big heartthrob doing feature films. So we had a very successful business, and Grant used to do a lot of these celebrity events. He said, we've done really well. Let's drive to Aspen. I'll make the story a little shorter, but we go to Aspen for New Year's, right after Christmas. And in the 90s, that's where all celebrities went. And we said, this will be a blast. So we went there. Nicole was divorced. Now, I didn't know Nicole. I didn't know anything since 1993, becoming 94. So I never met, I've heard the name OJ Simpson. I didn't know him. But at celebrity events, Grant had met Nicole already, and their eyes met. She divorced, and it was immediate kismet. And throughout the trip to Aspen, I was the third wheel. Like, hey. So we all went out for those 6 days, nights together a lot. And that was how my friendship started with Nicole. And it continued when we all went back to LA with Nicole when she was living on Gretna Green, not Bundy. She was in Gretna Green first. I was living in Hermosa Beach, and I had gone up to her house quite a few times. I met Justin and Sydney. And at one point I said, hey, it takes me an hour and a half to get here. I will rent your guest house. And she said, let me talk to the kids. The kids said, yes. And that was it. That was the start of our friendship. And it, became friends. And she was this incredibly loving mom.
And tell me about, during that friendship, what would be some things that you would do, and what would be some things that you would laugh over, and how did you see that she was a loving mom?
Well, every morning she had her set group of friends, and Kris Jenner was one of her very dear friends and other friends. I'd work very late, and I could be on a set from till 3 a.m. and I had my guest room back in Gretna Green. that every morning she'd take the kids to school and the girls would get together and run for quite a few miles. And I just remember them here and they'd have their coffee. And that was one of the memories I remember of how much you appreciate life and staying in shape. And another one was when the kids said, Mom, we want to get a dog. They got the Akita. And this is still stands out of my mind. The kids couldn't think of a name. And they said, we should just name the Akita Kato. So I just, I remember that. I think that was out of love calling me a dog. But, when I heard Kato drinking out of the toilet bowl, I knew it wasn't me. So, that was just, some of the memories and that. I had my own separate entrance. So I did not hang out with Nicole socially at all. I mean, I was there, and if she ever needed help with the kids, anything, pick them up at school, I was there. I was not the babysitter. I was never the pool boy with the media. I had my own job. I have a daughter that was the same age as Sydney, and they became friends when I had her on weekends. So it was a great setup.
It sounds like it. And, what was the property like? What was the atmosphere like while you were living there at the guest house?
Great. It was just, like I said, it was always upbeat, always fun. There was something always going on with her as far as doing events with her friends. And at some point, she got back with OJ. I had not met OJ up until probably 3 weeks or so into it. And it's a funny story because I find out later, years later, maybe 20 or so, from a private detective, that while I was living in Gretna Green, OJ had checked me out to find out who this Kato was. And I checked out all the boxes to be fine. I never had a romance with Nicole. It was strictly a friendship. I think I made her laugh a lot. I know I made the kids laugh a lot. And that was me. And I became sort of family member that way. And 100% respect for each other.
Interesting that the quote threat assessment was essentially whether it was a threat to OJ's perception of a relationship with her, and whether he
exactly.
had competition.
I think also it would be, who's this guy that's living in the guest house where my kids live, and maybe that's why you had private detectives, private eyes check on who this guy was. And but it's funny that I found out so much later. But in hindsight, Emily, I always thought, during the trial, I was thinking, I bet OJ had someone spying on me at some point. And my intuition was correct.
Did Nicole ever shed any light on her relationship with OJ to you? Did you ever?
I think Nicole had mentioned that she loved him and he loved others so much. And she didn't like that fact of never getting close enough to that. She never divulged any information, I think, that she had with her girlfriends. I wasn't privy to all the conversations. I do know that on the 911 call, when I was living in Gretna Green, I wasn't there during that time where OJ broke these doors down, but it was a part of the trial where the tapes were played. I ended up showing up later. So that's I didn't see him do it, but obviously he did. That's where I helped Nicole hammer these French doors shut because they were broken down. And that's what she sort of was saying, like, that he's crazy. And I still don't know what the fight was about. I think it was an affair he might have had. I can't exactly remember. I just know the police were there, and he was reported. He became violent with breaking the doors down, and according to the reports, he did not hit her at that time. And I guess the domestic violence that happened was, I think, 1989, a few of the cases. So I wasn't there until 93, 94, the end of 93. My opinion, Emily, is this. OJ wanted a wife, but he wanted others also. And I think at one point she said, no, it's me and nobody else. It's my opinion, but I think I'm correct.
And you were, obviously, as you've mentioned, you were present at the guest house on the night of the murders, which was at Rockingham.
Correct. Yeah.
So what can you tell me about what you remember from that tragic day, or your story, the events leading up, however you want to share?
Yeah, I think everything sort of is in hindsight, because you would never think anything would ever happen the day of or just a regular day. But in hindsight, I just remember OG coming to my door. my guest touch, which he rarely, if ever, did, and asked me if I could break $100 bill, which I couldn't. So I think that was the start of him possibly setting up an alibi. I remember inviting myself, because I used to run 10 to 15 miles a day and play basketball, and I was starving. He said he was going to get something to eat. I invited myself, and then I saw by this long pause, I stepped out of my boundary. It's in my mind. I'm going, oh, geez, what did I do? OJ is the big celebrity. I'm just nobody, and I'm inviting myself. And he took 5 seconds, I'd say, pause and said, yeah, sure, you can come. Now, that turned out to be McDonald's, and I didn't know where we were going, but that became the McDonald's drive-through ride. And that it was it becoming night. So that started, these are the memories that I have. I start thinking about how I think I screwed up his entire timeline. I thought he was coming to my door to set up a complete alibi, that I saw him at this time and that was it. But by inviting myself, I think I screwed up his entire timeline.
That's fascinating. And at what point, you sort of, in that moment, obviously you have a high social EQ and you read social cues in general. So you're like, oof, in that split second. But also, at what point did you realize the gravity or gravitas of that change? I mean, it's almost like the butterfly effect.
Yeah.
Way.
I knew that when we were at McDonald's, we were in his Bentley. He ate his, I think, 2 quarter pounders, just ate one in one bite. So I thought the other one we were going to eat at his house. So we go to the house. I run to his door out of the car, with his kitchen door, waiting for him, but he's still at the 15 yards away at the door of his car. So he never went in. I said, in my head, I go, oh God, he wants me to just beat it. So I went to my room, and that was it. And not until the limo driver showed up the next time I saw him. And I was on the phone calling people, I called a buddy of mine who happened to be at that time DA in San Diego, who was my best buddy from Milwaukee. So I'll tell you the important thing, Emily, that's really just changed my entire life to this day. Everything I do, I remember timelines. That's how important the timeline becomes. If I go out with any of my friends, anything, I'll make sure, okay, I was here at this time. I heard this song on the radio. Here was the station. And I still do that today, because I see how you have to know, if you're ever involved in any kind of situation, you have to know exactly what you did. And I think most people can't even tell you what they had for lunch yesterday. And it's sort of become OCD for me, which I hate, but it's become where I have to memorize and write down exactly certain songs, license plates, anything. If I go somewhere, if my wife and I go out to a dinner or something, I take notes.
Yeah, that's fascinating. What would you like to share about what else you remember from that tragic day, perhaps as it unfolded?
I just think it's sort of like life is so short, and I didn't know anything was going on until 4 detectives came to my door, and I still didn't know at 5:30 a.m. what was going on. And hearing Detective Tom Lang, who was the lead detective, still when he came to my room with the 3 other detectives and escorted myself and Arnell at the time, OJ's daughter, into the main house, and I had to hear him explain the phone to the Brown family that their daughter was dead. I think the impact of that was, oh my God. And at that time, I'm thinking, well, OJ was in Chicago, and I just wonder what had happened and why they're here. Obviously, we all know now because there's a blood trail. But after the interviews with the police, the detectives, they escorted me out to go with another uniformed policeman to the Santa Monica station. And then they said, when I walked out, they said, oh, be careful of the blood. And then I looked down and there was blood on the floor. And I still have that thought many, many times in my head of how they, watching the forensic files and detective shows, I wonder if they meant oh, look out to see a reaction. But there was blood on the floor. And yeah, it's something I'll never forget.
Mm. And amidst your grief, I could imagine in that moment, the shock, this was
It
your
was,
friend? I mean, you're
you
also,
know,
there's a traumatic.
Emma, I don't know if you've been in a car accident. It's the same effect. It's like a dream, and it's not real, and it's just like a fog takes over, and you can't comprehend, and you comprehend a minute, an hour later, and you're in disbelief.
You were subsequently thrust into the spotlight as the star witness, essentially, in what would become the, quote, trial of the century. Describe that experience for you.
Well, it's a double-edged sword, and I'll explain that. The double-edged sword because I was this guy, a kid who had my set of friends, and while I'm with friends, many of them in the entertainment business, and executives at studios, I used to go to film premieres all the time, where if you go to a film premiere, people don't really know you, recognize, you just go, you watch the film, you're invited to the after party. After the trial, after the preliminary, as soon as a person testified, like you said, I'm trusting something. I have no idea what the effect will be, but the effect was everybody knew my name at the next premiere, and everybody thought, oh, now he's going to movie premieres, which isn't true. I used to always go, but the fact that everybody knew who I was now and associated that, they just I became, I guess you could say, sort of insane. Oh, okay, I'm famous now, what sort of guy, and but. I always go back to my family. I'm always, if anybody's going to tell you to always stay humble and always know who you are, it's your family and your best friends. And that was my blessing that I had. The best friend, the best family in the world. And anytime there'd be a problem, they're the ones they call.
So it sounds like, obviously, you and your family were really close. You had your tight-knit friends. Did you suffer a negative social impact outside of your family and your close-knit group?
I think that the thing was that in the beginning of the trial, people would make fun of myself being the freeloader, the liar, even an assassin's target. It was a court of public opinion had their decision made up. But I had the belief of no matter what, my belief was I'm a good guy, and I think the cream will rise to the top no matter how long it takes. And I really believed that was what was going to happen. And 30 years later, all that is coming true. It took forever, but it's all coming to fruition because of the interviews that I've done and the TV shows that I've done, and just finding out the pulses of America or even out of America, and it's all been lately just incredibly positive.
Good. What was it like preparing for the trial, and how were you prepared for the trial?
Well, being a witness I've never been in a courtroom in my life. This is true. I never had parking tickets. I was just living a very clean, fun life. The first time I've ever in a trial is for a double homicide with someone that I know very dearly. And I did have a lawyer, obviously. I didn't know anything, but I had people that would recommend me, people to see. So I had to get a lawyer. I met with the lawyer. He had no idea who he is. He had to find out how we're talking now, everything, every detail. And it's the late William Janago, who I became a dear friend with, and he helped me out so much. He said, being a witness, which is, I didn't know I was a prosecution witness or a defense witness. I just knew I was a witness, but I was a prosecution witness. He was always meet with them and meet with the defense also. Be this person in the middle and hear both sides. So I was constantly going to meeting with Marshall Clark and the defense team with Robert Shapiro. And it was just it was just bizarre because I saw how you can be manipulated in anything on both sides. You can just, I was really frightened. I just was frightened. It was so new to me.
And tell me what you were frightened of or for.
Well, I guess I was frightened of because when the police would give me a ride, I met with FBI. They said maybe there'll be some life threats after you, death threats for you. And I think life threats would be much better. But no, they would have, people might have death threats. So I was supposed in my head, are they telling the truth? Are they trying to scare me? And I was there just to be 100% honest. And after I sat down with Bill Janago, the attorney, it just told me, just ask the questions honestly, and you're going to be fine. So I went following his advice, and I talked to him a lot. He he helped me out completely, where I became a little bit, more calm and that's it. But like I said, I was a prosecution witness, and at that in the beginning of everything, Emily, I didn't know where it was until I started having thoughts about OJ of certain things he had said, and that I think he's lying. He's lying. He's trying to get an alibi. And the instance was he said that we ate our McDonald's in the kitchen at that time during the trial. I said no. You never came back in the house. And I went to my guest house. So I said in my head, I go, why is he lying about that? And then I started having a thing of, I think OJ is guilty of this.
So let's talk about him then for a second. We talked about a few minutes ago that he had done sort of, a threat assessment on you for his own interests, his own romantic interests. But did you hold fear for him at all? Did you fear if you said the wrong thing during the trial, meaning the truth then, that he would come after you? Did you feel he had people at his behest? Did you feel an anger from him? And in that moment, as that thought went through your head, he did it. Did you think about consequences to you at all from him?
It's a good question, but I think it was, I knew obviously he was in jail. So did he have people after me? No, I didn't think that, but I definitely could feel his presence in the courtroom when you had to point out. And there were times when it was, I didn't want to look at eye contact. I know that times that I did, he had like a shake in his head with sort of a that feeling. You don't say the words, but you know what he's thinking. So then I think as it went on, I got stronger of my answers, of knowing how it was, up until I was called a hostile witness, which I didn't know why. But I was called a hostile witness for whatever reason. But knowing other lawyers now and doing my own podcast, so meeting people that were involved in the trial, including detectives, it was a big mistake on their part, because I was their witness, the prosecution.
That's right. And earlier you mentioned, sort of learning that people can be manipulated, or at least tried to manipulate for these purposes. So as you're meeting with both sides, can you describe, did you feel that both sides were trying to manipulate you? Did you feel support in your truth, the truth? Did you feel that they were hearing it, or did you feel that there was an attempt at coaching at all? Can you describe how that manipulation attempt?
Well, it wasn't so much coaching, but for instance, I met with prosecution Marcia Clark. She'd go over questioning of what I would be questioned on. And it was a lot. I was there at trial at 6.5 days. So every day we had to meet with what the questioning would be. When something was questioned that I didn't remember in the media, maybe it was brought up, I apparently gave this deer in the headlight look, and it was wholly because I was trying to remember, as I'm doing with I was like thinking out in my head, when did she ask me this question? I don't know what she's talking about and where she's leading. You can prep a witness, but you can't lead them on the stand. So I was aware of certain things of, I don't remember this question. So I was very animated, and it gave the appearance of, like I said, the deer in the headlights. And as far as defense goes, I met with him only a few times, but Robert Shapiro was the main person I met with. He could have been, be very charming. I mean, his job back then was a plea deals for celebrity, and he was a big shot, but he couldn't have been any kinder. But I still wasn't there to be swayed by him, and I think they knew that I was a very strong witness for the prosecution.
And to your point about, sort of the deer in headlights, or the way that people construed your expressions as you were thinking, you were in the courtroom in a televised trial, in arguably the most watched televised trial of all time. This was a historic trial. And, you're watching these legal powerhouses work the camera. You're also watching OJ Simpson work the people in the court. You just described his expressions and nonverbal communication to you during it. So did anyone else seem different when the cameras weren't rolling? Did you see a theater before you with any of the players?
Yeah, I think it was theater. I think theater being, how much more theater can you get with Larry King in a courtroom, the late Larry King, who celebrity of the biggest talk show going, in Judge Ito inviting people into the chambers. I believe Judge Jay's let up before for the jury while they're sequestered. It became it was a celebrity trial, and it was very Shakespearean. So that was going on. The jury, when I saw the jury, my opinion, which I'm sure I'm right, I could see that more than 80% liked OJ a lot. And I thought, this, he's going to be, he's not going to, reasonable doubt, 100%. There's no way he'll be convicted. It happened after Rodney King. So I think at one point, I think people saw it as the LAPD on trial also. And this is, it's no matter what's going to happen, OJ's going to go free.
Can I ask you, at what point did you realize that? Was it obvious early on that 80% and that your prediction of the acquittal, was that a pretty quickly?
When I was the question, I wasn't watching the trial at all. I didn't know all the things that were going on. But I think the parts that I saw when I was able to give information, I wasn't sequestered anymore, were, listen, the most iconic part was when if the glove don't fit, you must acquit. When Cochran said that, and when I saw the jury during my testimony, I could see Cochran knew how to speak to that jury, and they loved the dream team. So I think that's probably the most iconic moment with the gloves not fitting, and you had Dominic Dunn in the room. You bet he's going to be writing a novel. You knew certain people in the courtroom were there because they were going to write a book at some time. And it was just, like I said, it was sort of like going to a Vanity Fair Oscar party.
I was just going to ask you, because I think people who have experienced Hollywood, if only for a moment, realize that there's a very surreal quality about it in general, all the time, all day, every day. And therefore, and I know you already knew that because you already were working in Hollywood. You were already in that entire dynamic, in that theater. So then cut to the trial. And so my question is, in a way, it must have felt familiar and or simply recognizable, identifiable in that regard. Did you ascertain at the time, like, this is history in the making in that way? Like, this is food for the masses. This is popular TV consumption right now, like sort of watching it unfold. I am now in the first reality show of all time. Like,
100%. Because, well, first of all, doing Larry King show quite a few times, he labeled me the first reality star. So I could see that was that big. I knew from having an agent, which I always had an agent, everybody wanted me to meet. And, Hollywood's sort of like, you can go to the parties in Hollywood, but when you get to a level where everybody kind of wants to meet you, there's an invisible Hollywood where it's the A-list stuff that you get invited to. So I was starting to get that, and I was like, boy, I'm stuck. I was always aware of, I'm famous for the absolute most horrible reason. I wanted to be famous, but I wanted to be credited with something I'd done. I didn't want to be famous for a trial. But Emily, that was my blueprint in life. That was what I believe in God. So I was like, this is what's going to happen in your life, Kato. And I came out from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, to become an actor and all that. Everything kind of went backwards. But I've never lost sight that it was about two young people. I've never lost sight that it was about Nicole and Ron. So, they're in heaven. They realize it too. So what was thrust upon me was my no doing of me, but my only thing I could do was handle it correctly, and I think I have. And so, like I said, everything kind of went backwards. But I never be famous. I never lost sight of why.
Well, I can attest personally. We were speaking about this before we started the recorded conversation, but I had the pleasure of meeting you. I haven't quite done the math, but it was at least 15 years ago, and it was at a celebrity golf tournament, and you were the same warm, sweet, jovial, kind, endearing, spirited human that you are on this podcast right now. You were then, and you were humble then, and you're humble now. So
thank you.
I see that in you, and you clearly have carried that with you this entire time. And it must have been very difficult. I can imagine straddling the line of how America painted you in certain lights, how you were perceived or portrayed, negatively and inaccurately, and also the real you, a faith-filled actor, person with your own dreams and your own world. Can you share a little bit about navigating maybe perhaps those multiple or two identities and what your life has looked like in that regard since then?
Well, I think the hard part for me was that when you're in the spotlight for so long, you can walk to a room and you can immediately spot someone that immediately doesn't like you. They don't know you, but they just don't like you. They have a preconceived notion. I had so many people with a preconceived notion, and the best thing I could do was to break that preconceived notion, which I think I did when I actually met the people. I don't know how many times I heard, like, God, I had the wrong opinion of you. I'm so sorry. But it just shows you, I think, that everybody wants to criticize someone before they know who the person is. And I think that's the wrong thing to do. And I think, especially nowadays, it's like, look at the world. We're in a bad spot. What's going on in life right now? If anything, we need positivity. We need, I'm very, I guess, political, I'm in LA. It's really bad out here. And it's just people, I live in a pretty cool area, but we see homeless. It's like, are you kidding me? So something has gone wrong where people start turning on people. Maybe it's social media. In the 90s, there wasn't social media, and my whole life was on TV shows from the current affairs and hard copies. But I just think we become not as much human, and the compassion's gone because we've lost contact with everything, sort of texting and everything. So we've lost contact with that. But boy, I got heavy there for a second, but I think I'm right. I had,
I'm grateful.
I really hope, Emily, and what you do on your show, Outnumbered and interviews, it makes a difference to make the world better.
Thank you. And I'm grateful for your perspective, so that everything you say is valuable. What do you hope, as you talked about, you sort of said it came in reverse. What do you hope that your purpose, or, what do you identify as your purpose, or what do you hope your legacy is or will be? Looking back, what do you hope to leave others with?
Well, I hope my legacy is still waiting to happen, because I pursue my career every day. And I nobody hustles like me, because no one will do it except yourself. So I am constantly out there. I've got street pilots I shot, and they're great. And, pilots, they're sort of a crapshoot of what's going to get picked up. I really believe in one of these shows I just shot. It's wonderful. I got great support and, with a great agent. And I think something is happening with that. And I think the legacy gets built because the more you build, I think sort of work begets work. When you get one show, I think it leads to 2 shows, 3 shows, and it just sort of that snowball rolling effect. And I think that's happening. And I think my legacy will happen because of that. And I honestly, I started this interview with you by saying, I can't change the past. Nobody can. You can only live for today and make the future better. And that's why the legacy will live on and become great. Great things will happen. That's
right. OJ Simpson died earlier this year. What kind of feelings for you did that news bring about?
I lost my parents, so it's a completely different feeling of losing the parents. But having said that, my feelings are more about the kids, because nobody likes to lose a parent. And so I directed everything to the kids, Cindy and Justin, who I knew, of losing their father and their mother, of what they would have to go through. So it was directed towards that. I met Kim and I met Fred Goldman, and like I said, people kept going, well, at least they have closure. And I was said, absolutely not. There has absolutely no closure. So those are my feelings on that. Yeah. It was more about the kids.
And in closing, I want to end substantively with this, and then I just have one more final question after that. But okay. I just wanted to close with the memories of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman, and give you an opportunity to share anything else that you would like to about them, about those lives that were cut tragically short. And
I would say from my heart that I didn't know Ron, but like I said, I knew Kim and Fred. It's the most unfortunate thing, first of all, to lose someone that's younger, the parent losing their their son who's young. A parent never wants their child to go before they do. I just think that it's horrible how he was cheated out at the prime of his life. And I could only know through knowing them how wonderful a person he was, even though I didn't know him. I think when Nicole is, I think people, there's a Lifetime show about her life, but Nicole's a person, always bright. I mentioned before, she was a beacon of light. She shined this brightness and have what it was. That's what she was. And you kind of see what a person's about by the way the kids love them. So she was loved by her children.
You are, I want you to know, a beacon of light too, Kato. You are such a vibrant, warm spirit, really, truly a kind individual that really shines through. Where can we find your podcast? Where can people find you now? Where can they help support and amplify your work?
Yes, I always say that with great power comes huge electric bills. No, but seriously, stop it, Kato. You can find me at, I have a podcast with Tom Zenner, a broadcaster like yourself. We host a show called One Degree of Scandalous. It's One Degree of Scandalous at YouTube, Spotify, and it's free to subscribe. And we're just going skyrocketing right now with our show with certain things going on. I do an Instagram page of jokes. So Instagram is Kato_Kaelin, Kaelin. I'm in the process. Right after this, I have a pitch with a network, and 2 pitches for next week. And I hopefully I can tell you news about all that stuff within a month or two, and start production on one of these shows. And they're both true crime. And the funny thing is I really like laughing, but my whole life has been true crime. I finally embraced it, and I saw that I can share my stories of other people that possibly went through things that I did, and maybe not the same media, but still the same feeling in their heart of what they have to go through. So I think these shows will go one for sure. And that's it. Always working. And I'm married and I'm happy and la, la, la.
That is all fantastic. That is all absolutely fantastic. Kato Kaelin, thank you so much. We will see you on all of those screens in all of those ways. All you need is one, and to see your humanity shine through and to see you succeed is a gift and a blessing, and I'm sure that Nicole is smiling down for it. That's for sure.
Thank you.